How you guys doing? Thanks for coming out. What do you want me to play? I never know what to play at these things. What do you say? Rain and Blood. All right. Hold on. Let's see if I remember it. Tuned differently though. Tuned a little lower. Kind of like it low like that. Sounds good. Normally it'd be like a half step up, but let's just have fun. All right. Fingers hurts. I almost tore. I, I had a, you think I'd be more careful because I'm a guitar player, but no, I pulled my fingernail back so far the other day. It was bloody and it's kind of hurts. So. But, it's, metal. It's supposed to be painful, right? Questions, anything. Let's make this fun. I'll answer anything you got except for what my bank account number is or anything like that. I know like 5 or 6 licks. Seriously, but you can make a career out of it, right? One of my heroes, Angus Young, he probably knows 4, and he does them better than anyone else. You could recognize an Angus Young solo by one note, or even a pick slide. And there's so many like shredding guitar players out there, and you can't do that off a run. And I just find little cheats, little ways to work away around little things. You got your usual, stuff, and then you just add those little half steps in there. Stuff like that. But it's one riff with some flavor in it to make it easier to move around. The pentatonic scale is the hardest to master. I still work on it all the time because I want to get as good at it as Zakk Wylde is, but that's never going to happen because he just gets better and better at it. But he's been nice enough to send me videos a couple times. Like, like, how'd you do that? He sent me a video. That didn't help at all. I don't know what you did. It's too fast. But, like, and the same with your harmonic minor stuff. You find ways to, like, slide notes around, because I don't know a million notes. Just like... just stuff like that to get around the fretboard, because most of my solos are really basic. I mean, I'm a rhythm player who has to play lead. If I had to give up one, I'm going to give up solos in a second because I'd rather play riffs. The riff is 95% of the song, so, I'm always amazed when I see guitar players who don't work on the rhythm part. It's like, that's most of the song. It's the important part. Solo shit don't matter, It's just you could just sit there and do that for 5 minutes, and people will go, "Yeah, that was awesome." You just do that and go get a bite, Yeah, pour yourself a drink or whatever. But what I do work on, though, is vibrato. I've worked really hard on it over the recent years. Because, as you get older, you start, like, finding yourself dealing with arthritis, things like that. And what makes a great note is one that, like, sings, So I've worked really hard on just bending notes, Funeral Hymn? Oh, that was, it's funny you mentioned that because everybody keeps asking us to play it. And, because it's hard for me to play live because of my elbow problems, But I mean, I can play. Goes like that. And how's the main riff go? It's been a long time. Not warmed up enough for that. But yeah, I'd have to relearn that. I definitely don't always remember my own stuff. I can play it sitting there, and then live, sometimes, my elbows start to, like, tighten up because, I've dealt with, like, arthritis and tennis elbow and things like that. And, they've changed the way you have to play things. I do more cheats now in picking, like, instead of always down picking, do, like, a little up, down, 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 stuff like that. You do what you have to do. I'm 61 years old, and I've been doing this a long time. And I'm not ready to quit by any means. I don't know what else I do with my life. But, you find ways to, like, continue to play stuff that you wrote when you were young and had healthy arms and hands, You do what you have to. I have to warm up a lot. I warm up, like, a solid hour before we play. Like, at least an hour. Lee warms up not at all. Lee walks on stage and, like, Lee wakes up and walks on stage. It's ridiculous. But no, I warm up an hour, at least an hour, if not more.
Lee has a warm-up beer.
He has a warm-up beer. Yeah, Lee. But it works for him. So, but no, I don't have a warm-up routine. I just play things that I know are gonna, like, get the hands moving. A lot of riff stuff and just noodling around. I don't have, like, these scale exercises or anything like that. Oh, well, we probably had some chemical help back then. Kids don't do drugs. No, we were young, and, we rehearsed 5 to 6 days a week, whether we had a show or not. Now we rehearse, like a lot of bands, when we have to, like we live in different states, the band, But back then, rehearsal, practice wasn't work, it was fun. And so we did it, every day of the week except for, like, maybe weekends when we were going out to party, or maybe playing ourselves. So, we played so much, you didn't really need to warm up because, you just never stopped, never put the guitar down. I still play all the time at home, they're sitting all over, laying on the couch, and I'll watch TV and just sit there, watch sports and play guitar. I love these things. It's been really good to me. I love them. Favorite song? Oh, that's hard to pick. That's like picking which one of my children I love the most. I always love playing Strike of the Beast. It's always our closer, and it's ripping. Like it's fun. It's fun stuff. And then there are none. I don't know if we're playing that one tonight, but I love chunky stuff. As fast as all the Exodus shit. I love just the simple. Caveman riffs. Just completely like low IQ, heavy, chug, chug, chug. That's my favorite stuff. It was fun stuff. Anything that goes crunch. I love it. Crunchy guitars. But me, I take the basic stuff. I like the first lick I learned. It was, not. Just take it like that and move the pinky around. Just stuff like that, And it sounds really impressive and it's fast, but it's not that hard.
But it's cool. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Growing up, as a kid, like worshiping bands like Thin Lizzy, and they had Les Pauls. And I didn't even play guitar, but a Les Paul's shape just kind of looked like the Stradivarius thing to me. It looked like the finest instrument on earth. But I love the balance, the weight. And mine are really heavy. This is one of my lighter ones, and it's pretty heavy. Some of mine are like back-breakingly heavy, and like I question everything, every decision I made when I said make it really heavy, because they're like tanks, But I don't know. I just love them. I haven't played Strats in a long time. I got the new V, which I love. But these things, the sound, just all that wood right there, like crushing. They're very comfortable too. I don't know. Right now, it's like we do a couple shows, and if we all have fun, maybe we do a couple more. Last year when we did the shows, everybody had a great time, and we were really good. We worked really hard at it, and we rehearsed really hard. And so we'll see how it goes this year. I can't make any guarantees. The only thing I can guarantee is the new Exodus album is insane, and I will be very busy touring for that next year. It's crushing, but it's also very different. It's like you're going to be surprised. Yes.
Do you have a release date yet?
Early next year. It's 100% Exodus, but there's some new things that we've never done. Because we write for ourselves. We don't write for anyone else. We just want to write music that gets us excited, and if we're lucky, you like it too. And I love the new Exodus. Oh my God, it's phenomenal. It's like with new records because we recorded 2.
And the release date for the new single?
Next year at some point. We'll be back here early next year. That's all I'll say. Proper tour. Yeah, I'm kind of, festivals are fun, but I'm a guy who likes to maintain a routine on tour. I like to eat and have a schedule. And festivals means it changes every day because you never know what time you're playing, and it kind of throws me off a little bit. So I'm ready to just play indoor shows again, exclusively. I got to be warmed up for that one. Like that, something like that. See, there's the down pick and cheat that I do on that, because we play it really fast live too. So, but it's like, it's that first little up down gets you up to speed, and it helps a lot. Little things like that. You learn how to like get away with murder, so you don't kill yourself doing it. No, it just metronome's all up in here. I mean, I'm a rhythmic guy. And I always felt like I have the mentality of a drummer anyway. And I'm playing with Tom Hunting since I was 17 years old. Him and I have like our own unspoken language, and you just work on it. Rhythm playing hurts. It's painful. It takes way more work than shredding noodly stuff and arpeggios and goofy things like that. And a lot of guys don't want to work on it, and I put in the work, I still do. I want the riffs to be crushing and tight, and and I play really hard too. The only thing I've changed in my playing is I've started experimenting with different picks. I'm using the little pointy ones now, but the ones I use live, I take a nail file and I file the edge off it, because I like my picks to be like used. Like I used to use the same pick from warm up through the whole show. By the end of the show, it's just shredded. There's nothing left. It's just gone. And so now I like take my like nail file and I take the edge off it, so it's kind of already pre-broken in. I like it. I use on the new Exodus album on every solo. I use the John Petrucci pick. Yeah, like 2 millimeter thick, glossy pick, and it's so fast. But rhythm-wise, I found it dulls the sound a little bit. But like Lee and I realized there's this whole guitar pick technology that we've been using, these grandfather picks, like old man guitar picks, and all these guys are shredding with these new picks. So we tried out a lot of stuff, and we found we really loved them. They're awesome. 10 years old and taking a shot at Rain and Blood, which is hard to play. I think, especially that riff. When I had to learn that riff, I couldn't even hear those notes. I thought it just was like, and Carrie goes, no, it's. Heavy as hell, though. No, never. No. And I'm not bragging or anything. That's where I was meant to be, is on stage. Everything else. I mean, I love being in the studio. It's a lot of fun to me. And but being on stage, that's like, you're going into a fight, It's like a boxer walking into the ring to knock a fool out. Only thing is, I'm knocking all you guys out. So, it's fun. It's like, I don't get nervous. I get anxious, like I want it to start. But it's been a long time since I got nervous. And maybe at that Black Sabbath gig, I might be a little nervous. Like, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking forward to that one, though. It's going to be awesome. I mean, let me elaborate. When we did the first Slayer show last year, we were all a little nervous because it'd been 5 years. But, I did my homework. I was ready. Everybody did. No, like it just depending on how I'm sitting down. Usually, I'm gonna hold it like this, but it just this is made for your leg. It just seems comfortable, just no reason. You know, I mean, and you know, you sit down. It's like it's kind of the equivalent of like wearing your guitar all up high, and then you know it's easy to play, and then you get out live, and it's all down there, and everything's harder to reach, but it looks cooler though. Oh yeah, I think I remember it. Something like that. You're welcome. You know, it's not what licks you know, it's playing them with conviction and making it seem like you know more than you do. You know, and just bending notes. Bend those things. Vibrato's everything. You know, it's like I work on it all the time because, you know, guys like Makemoremusic are the best in the world at it. You know, his vibrato's beautiful. It's like a violin. It sings, you know, and so that's something I work on a lot these days. Plus, my strings are pretty light on the wound side. You know, I use a custom set. It's 52 to 9 tuned to D standard, so they're pretty slinky. Rob's vocals on the new Exodus are gonna blow your mind. It's gonna blow your mind. The range he's acquired is just phenomenal. It's crushing, super catchy. You know, things, you know, got to the point to where the band had to like, you know, make a change, and I never want to make change. I'm one of those guys who hates change. But you know, people had asked, you know, was anyone else an option? And like, no, it's like I'm gonna have my friend back or no one at all. I could have got some like 30-year-old singer who still has abs and, you know, he's not fat and he could jump off the top of the drum risers. But what am I gonna have in common with him, you know? Rob's, you know, one of our best friends, and right now the five of us are having the time of our lives. We're having fun. It's awesome. No, I still use amps all the time. My amp rig at home is all Marshall Jubilees, and they're heavily boosted. And on the new album, we literally rolled my live rig in and put a mic on it, and it was done. We didn't touch it. It was perfect. And here in Europe, you know, I'm using Jubilees tonight, but when I have to fly into a show, you know, I use like Quad Cortex, you know, because I can go to a show in Guatemala and have my tone, you know, where you're not going to get a Jubilee in Lima, Peru, or El Salvador, you know, or in most places, for as a matter of fact. But, you know, I still treat it like a preamp. You know, I'm running into the effects return of the JVM into cabs, and then I mic it, and then it comes through the monitors. But it just enables me to, like, have the tone and presets, you know, shit, you know. stuff. Making me work here. But yes, sir. Hell awaits because everything's on fire. Then, like, that's when the pyro goes crazy. And as a kid, that was my dream. When you're a 17-year-old aspiring guitar player, and you're like, I probably set a couple little fires in the backyard and dreamt that shit was happening. And then you go see some rock band with pyro and like, one of these days, because it's ridiculously expensive. Exodus will never afford that, but Hell Awaits, that's when all the pyro goes off. And it's hot. It's awesome. And I love every part of it. Plus the song is crushing. It's killer, it starts off, all I'm doing is... if I'm really energetic, I do it like what I call my waltz picking. It's like down, down, up, down, down. Enables me to play it harder. Andy Sneap, when we were doing an album, I can't remember the song, but he was like, what the hell are you doing? He couldn't wrap his head around the... It's just a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Most people just... But the way I do it, I can accent the snare. I've done it forever. And I couldn't understand how he didn't know what I was doing. I was like, doesn't everybody do it like that? He's like, no. And he'd give me that guitar, and he couldn't do it. And I've always done it like that. Going back to like the early days of Exodus with Kirk Hammett, like a song like Pillager. Just the way I've always learned it. I didn't think I was doing anything unique, On the book, quite a while, it's like I've had a lot of offers over the years to do the book, and then my co-writer Adam Tepedelen was the writer for Decibel Magazine, and we did this Exodus cover story, and he approached me about it. And to me, the most important thing is that I'm comfortable with the guy I'm telling these stories to, because I'm like exposing myself and I'm opening wounds again that were really traumatic, and terrible parts of my life, in the midst of redemption and rebirth or what have you. And so we just had conversations for at least a good year, and I would write him notes, like 2-word sentences that meant nothing to anyone else, but they would trigger an entire memory for me. And so he'd ask, about what about this? What the hell does that mean? Oh shit, let me tell you, and so I send him like a whole list of these little phrases, because Exodus are a bunch of weird dudes. We always have our own language, and we always come up with words to describe things that mean nothing to anyone else, but they mean everything to us. And so I had to get him fluent in Exodus speak, so to speak, But I'm very happy with how the book came out. I'm pretty proud of it. That's something I've done a long time, and you hit. You do it up there too, like an octave. But you have to have a floating bridge to do it, because the strings are just pulling the bar down, and so this note is going up while this one's going down, and you find the right spot and they work. It's hard to do live, though. If you're not really listening to it, you're getting it to fall on that perfect note. Take some practice. in other spots too. One of the things you just sit around and experiment and like you stumble upon it, and then you actually, by some miracle, you find a spot in a song to use it. And that was one, yeah. Because I have my own band. That's their band. I'm not. I mean, I love those guys and their family, and I love playing in Slayer. But I'm not going to miss Exodus tours to play in someone else's band. I mean, I've missed too many Exodus tours as it is with Slayer. And I'm really thrilled and happy to be back with my first family. And doing a couple of Slayer shows a year, if it continues next year or whatever, that's awesome because it still allows Exodus to be my focal point. Because at this point in my life, I don't want to walk away from that anymore. I did that, and it was amazing, wonderful experience, and it was a great 10 years of my life. But, it's like I'm back with the guys I started with, and that's where I'm staying. Where I belong. Now, that's a crazy riff. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that. Love that song, though. Maybe one of these days we'll play it live. That would require a lot of rehearsal because that riff is a nightmare. And it's a beautiful nightmare, but it's hard enough for me to play it, and I wrote it, and to get me and Lee like really locked on it, it would take some work. Plus, it's super fast, the beat, because I told Tom, I said, no, I want it like an upbeat, not a downbeat. Put it in, like, you're out of your mind. Just do it. It'll be awesome. And he did it. Sometimes, the BPMs on Exodus material now are like so much faster than the Bonded era stuff and all that, And at some point in my life, I'm going to have to slow it down. I don't know, because it just keeps getting faster and faster. Like, I wrote a song on the new album at the end of the recording process because, we keep the gear set up the whole time. We live in a house together, and we continue to write the whole process through, kind of like the way our heroes did it, like Deep Purple would go to Lake Geneva, Persona non grata, we did at Lake Almanor. We lived in a house and we write. And on the new album, the last song I wrote was the fastest song on the album, and Tom thought I was out of my mind. It was like, no, it's going to be killer. And it's not all fast, but the parts that are fast are stupid fast. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. Can't wait for you to hear it. It's awesome. It's the exact same rig, only 3 times larger with Slayer. It's the same Jubilees. Every pedal is the same. It's my tone in Exodus. There's the only difference is it's 6 cabs and 3 heads, and they're all on. And monitors, and it's ridiculously loud. But the beauty of the shows we did last year was the first time in all the years in Slayer I was able to really dial the rig in exactly how I did it at home, where I spent like countless hours working on it. And so I'd done that work, and then when we did the Slayer rehearsals, I just replicated it, and it's just savage. So killer. The reissues, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have an original. I still have my old JCM 800s that I had since 1987, the modded ones that you hear on everything from Fabulous Disaster to Force of Habit to Tempo of the Damned. I still have all of those, and they're priceless. When I write, I write by myself, and then I present it, and like sometimes the song is completely finished. Sometimes, like Tom will will jam, and then when I hear drums, and he'll try something different, and that'll kind of speak to me. And it's just every song's a little bit different, but sometimes they're like done at home on GarageBand or whatever. I still use GarageBand with Easy Drummer, and like Lee just recently learned home recording drums, and he puts every drum fill and change. I'll put one tempo the whole song, and just it never changes. And then I'll tell Tom, it's not all fast, relax, don't get stressed out. It's just easier for me to tell you go halftime here rather than spend all the extra time programming and changing beats, because that slows me down. I just want to riff, so I'll just let the drums go like a drum loop, and then we'll like change the beats later. Lee writes his songs, I write mine. We kind of like have this like thing like where he tracks the rhythms to his songs, and like I don't even ask what he does, just you wrote it, all right, recording it, and I'll go work on mine, and I completely trust him. And he wrote a lot of stuff for the 2 albums of material we have. He really stepped up. It's awesome. Yeah. Rob wrote quite a few lyrics. Tom wrote one, and then I wrote like a whole bunch. Real proud of the new stuff. It's awesome. It's more muscle memory. As I've gotten older and blinder, like all of a sudden you like, oh, I need to really see the fretboard. When you're young, you don't even look at it. But now I wear contacts on stage so I can actually see. That's why most of these guitars, they have the light up LEDs, because when you're blind and your eyes are all blurry and you can't see anything, it helps. But I'm able to see again on stage thanks to medical science of contact lenses. I finally learned how to get those things in and out. It's a pain in the ass. Well, I don't know. I started out on Stratocasters because Richie Blackmore was my hero, and and mine were all just Strat copies. And when we did the Bonded by Blood shows in California, I found an old Hondo piece of junk Strat like I started out on, and so I finally found one exactly like it, but I had it completely rebuilt, like new stainless steel frets, super top of the line Floyd Rose, hand wound pickups. And it was awesome, and it sounded amazing, but it's so weird playing a Strat for me now. But we've talked about doing like maybe a limited edition replica of the Candy Red Studio 54 Strat, maybe, we'll see. But I like these things. They're awesome. They're great stuff. They are. Yeah. They make the best guitars on earth. I'm sorry. They just, all those other companies that think they're awesome, you just get the fuck out of here. You suck. End on that note. We recorded it in, I think, 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. My Marshall amp wasn't working, so I borrowed John Marshall's high watt. There's all these weird things that happened to create that album. And the high watt, I ended up using 2 Boss Super overdrives on it to make it crunchy, with the drives on 0 and the levels on 10. And my Candy Red Strat wasn't working right. The intonation had gotten really shitty, so I used this Fernandez Strat I had. And it had a Kaler on it, and I couldn't get any of the squeals. It wouldn't do them. That's why you listen to Bonded by Blood, you hear a lot of, but you don't hear a lot of, it just would not do it. and we drank the entire time, and we had friends come up. We recorded on a ranch, and friends would come up and they get drunk and get in a fight, and there'd be fist fights, and then we get up the next day and we do it again. Just it was awesome. We actually went back to that same studio to do the drums for Tempo the Damned, and they were worried that we were going to destroy the place. And like, no, we were like 20 years old. We're like old men now. We left it cleaner than we got it the second time. But he said that we left a trail of destruction so great it had to be admired. It was like awesome. Out of our minds, young kids. Didn't know what we were doing, just having fun. Which job? Huh? Oh, well, I started playing music at 17 years old. I've only had a couple of jobs in my life. But they were all shitty, terrible jobs, because I have no job skills. When the band broke up in the 90s, I was working at a RV, mobile home lot, cleaning up rat shit out of trailers and dog shit off the yard, Yeah, I went from playing big venues and touring with Venom to like working for a total asshole boss and for almost no money, But it humbles you, keeps you grounded, But I don't. What would I do if I couldn't play guitar? I don't know. Steal, rob banks, some shit like that. All right, let's hang out. All right, enough of this shit.